Good afternoon, everyone. As I mentioned, I would be recording this lecture because there are some things that I want to make sure I cover and that I make you aware of, or that you're made aware of, and that I've at least introduced you to them. This chapter here, chapter 7, okay, it says management roles, functions, and skills. So let's go ahead and start with, as I mentioned before, when I first read this, lectured this to you guys. Let's go ahead and start with a quick reality check. Okay. Businesses, they're not just competing on products, they're competing on leadership and adaptability. Okay. So think about how companies say, like Tesla, Amazon, even small local startups, how they have had to pivot their management strategies. And they have had to do that to handle rapid AI, let's say, integration, whether they were also supply chain issues, and even having to shift employee expectations. So that great management today, it's not about having this control. It's about creating this clarity that you would say that's in chaos. Okay. Now, in our last class, we explored entrepreneurship and small business ownership, how visionaries identified opportunities and how they take those calculated risks to build something, let's just say, from scratch. But once that business is launched, you ask yourself, what keeps it running, growing, even thriving? That right here, this is where management now steps in, the engine now that transform these ideas into action. Now, in chapter 7, this is where we move, let's say, from the entrepreneurial mindset to the managerial skill set. We're going to explore how these successful managers, how they plan, how they organize, how they lead, even control, and the 4 key functions that bring this structure and efficiency to any given organization. I don't care what it is. Now, let's just say whether you're running that startup or managing a corporate team, these skills that I'm going to go over today, they're going to define how you get these results, and you get them through people. Okay. So make sure you pay attention. Now, we're going to start by unpacking throughout this chapter, a lot of things, a lot of good information. So make sure you pay attention and you take it for what it's worth. Okay. So let's go ahead and take a look at our learning objectives so we can see in what direction we're headed in and the skills that you should be walking with, out of this whole lecture today. Now, have you ever noticed or identified how some of these best managers, how they make leadership look so effortless, you know, like, they always know what to do next. Now, let's just say whether it's Tim Cook keeping Apple innovator or local business owners adapting to new market shifts. So, great management, it's all about mastering structure and decision making. That's exactly what I'm going to be breaking down today. Now, so far, what we've discussed, we have gone over everything from entrepreneurship to ethics to teamwork to ownership, which now leads us to this understanding how businesses are actually managed day to day, or how they manage their day to day operations. Now, these learning objectives, they're going to give you the roadmap, as I mentioned, for what it takes to be an effective leader in any given organization. Okay. So let's just start with what this chapter is going to focus on. There are 7 key objectives here. We're going to learn the 4 core functions of management, from planning, organizing, leading, controlling, and how they all intertwine. You're going to also understand the management roles, from the decision making to the motivating teams. And we will also be exploring the strategic planning process, the different leadership styles, the organizational culture, and even how AI and cognitive automation are reshaping management decisions. Okay. Now, by the end of the chapter, you're going to see all that management, that it isn't just a title. It's an overall skill set that's going to drive every business moving forward. Now, great insights. That's exactly the kind of real world thinking that we're going to be applying throughout this whole chapter. So let's go ahead and start down by breaking down what management really means and how some of the best managers turn this vision, let's just say, into reality. Now, just think about companies, let's say, like SpaceX, Apple, or even small businesses here throughout the RGB. They're not succeeding, and they're not succeeding because of the great ideas. They're succeeding because of the great management. So, as you know, vision isn't it's nothing without execution. A brilliant product means little if no one knows how to plan or how to lead or even organize the team to deliver that. This is where true management now, where the power now shows up. Now, in chapter 6, as I mentioned, we explored entrepreneurship, how these visionaries create something new. Now, this is where we pivot to management, how those ideas are now turned into reality. Now, every entrepreneur, they eventually face this particular point. How do I keep this business organized, efficient, growing? That right there, that is the world of management. Okay. So management, it's all about getting things done, as I mentioned. It's not by yourself, but it is through others. Now, that in itself, it's the process of planning, even organizing and leading, or even controlling. And they do that to meet these organizational goals. As the book here that I have here, Dr. Leonard Sales, he tends to point out in his quote, and that quote just reads that society often overlooks how critical management is, but effective management, that is what turns potential into performance. Now, let's just say whether it's coordinating a small team or leading a global enterprise, management right there, that in itself is the backbone that drives these results. Now, on our next slide, what I'm going to break down all of this for us. We're going to take a closer look at those 4 core management functions that every given organization tends to depend on. Now, let's just say, think about your favorite brand. Now, whether it's Nike, Starbucks, or let's just say a local coffee shop, Moonbeams, Reserva, whatever it is, every single one of them, they follow the same formula. Okay, let's just say from the CEO down to the shift supervisor, these 4 functions that you see here, it is what keeps the business running like a very well-oiled machine. Now, this right here, this that you see here is one of the most foundational frameworks that you're going to be learning. So no matter what industry that you go into, whether it's tech, healthcare, education, and as I mentioned, even your own startup, these functions, they are the ones that are going to shape how you manage people and projects effectively. Okay, so let me give you a little breakdown of each one of them. So we start off with planning at the very, very top at 12 o'clock. And planning, that's all about setting these goals and deciding the best way to reach them. And then you have at 3 o'clock organizing. And organizing, that just involves the coordinating of resources, people, money, equipment. And that is to execute that particular plan, whatever it may be. And then you have at 6 o'clock leading. And that is just motivating, inspiring, guiding your team towards those goals that you have set in place. And then, of course, you have at 9 controlling. And controlling just means that you're making sure that the things are staying on track, measuring that performance and making those adjustments when they are needed. Now, when you put all these together right here, they tend to create a continuous cycle of improvement. Now, every manager, let's just say regardless of experience or role, they engage in these interrelated functions, and they do that to achieve success. That's what happens here. Now, those patterns that I'm talking about, they happen to in real businesses as well. So now that you have a better understanding what managers do, let's go ahead and explore how they even do that. And they do it through these 3 key roles that every manager plays in any given organization. Now, I want you all to think about the best manager or leader that you've ever seen. It could have probably been a coach, a teacher, even a supervisor at work. And you ask yourselves, what made them effective? It wasn't that just their title. It was pretty much how they balance people, information, even decisions. Now, that balance there that I'm talking about, it is what separates the average managers from the truly great ones. So now that you've already seen and learned that management involves the 4 key functions that I just went over, such as the planning, organizing, leading, and controlling in the previous slide. Now what we're going to do, we're going to just dive a little deeper, and we're going to see how these managers actually perform these functions day to day, and they do it through these 3 specific behavior roles. Sorry about that. Now, according to management expert, Henry Mitzenberg, Every manager plays these three major types of roles. You know, the interpersonal role, meaning how they connect and communicate with people. The informational role, how they, they gather, process, and share that knowledge. And then, of course, you have the decisional role. And this decisional role, that's how you make those smart choices that move the organization forward. Now, think of these three steps here as the action steps of management. And what they're doing, they're transforming this theory into practice. As an example, that's all they're doing here. Okay. Now, each of these roles that you see here, they all have their own challenges and they also have their own rewards. But what I'm going to do, we're going to start by breaking down the first one, the interpersonal role. That's what I'm going to go over. This is where management now begins with people and relationships. Now, people and themselves, they just don't follow job titles. They tend to follow leaders. Think about, as I mentioned before in class, Elon Musk. And Elon Musk, how he influences innovation across multiple industries. Or let's just say a local business owner, how they motivate their small team through, let's say, trust and authenticity. Management success, it's all about how you lead, connect, and you inspire others. That right there, that is the heart of the interpersonal role. Now, these roles right here, these roles highlight the people side of management, how you represent your organization, how you lead your team, how you build the relationships across different departments. Every manager, let's say from a shift leader at Starbucks to a CEO at Google, how they play these roles daily, and often at the same time. Now, as I mentioned, there are out of this one here, sorry. So out of this interpersonal role, there are three main types. You have the figurehead that you see in lavender. And the figurehead, that just means you're the public face. You represent the company, let's say at events, meetings, or even social media. And then you have, the leader. And the leader, this is where you're motivating, coaching, and guiding employees. And you're doing that so they can reach their shared goals. And then, of course, you have the liaison, meaning you're building these networks and maintaining these connections both inside and outside the organization. Now, strong managers master all these three. They tend to balance authority with, let's just say, empathy and professionalism with approachability. But let's just say, imagine you're bringing, imagine you're managing a small business or a student, let's just say a student organization, which, you could ask yourself, what interpersonal role do you think you'd be the strongest in? And which one may you need improvement? It could possibly be, let's just say, the liaison role. Okay. You may fit good in that role. Why? Because you may like to network, talk to people, or maybe the figurehead, a lavender, meaning you like to represent the team, but maybe leading others might be even harder. Or the leadership, right? But you might have to work on connecting with people outside of that group. Now, leadership is always a balance of visibility, communication, even connection. So now that I've covered this right here, the people side of management, now this is where we move into the next role. And we're going to move into how managers handle information and they turn this into power. Okay. Now, in today's business world, information is more valuable than gold. Managers who know how to gather and interpret the right data tend to make faster, smarter, even more profitable type decisions. Think of leaders like Satya Nadella, as I mentioned before, at Microsoft, or Mary Barra at GM. They just don't lead people. What they're doing, they're leading with information. So now that we've talked about the people side of management, this is where we shift the gears to the knowledge side. And this is where managers are now constantly processing information. Let's just say from customer feedback to performance metrics, and even deciding what to do with it. Now, in the digital world that's filled, let's just say with all this AI dashboards and nonstop type data, This role in itself has never been more critical. Now, there are three key informational roles with this role here. And you'll see the first one being that monitor, meaning that they're constantly scanning the environment for relevant data, reading reports, analyzing market trends, and they're having to stay alert to those opportunities or even threats. And then, of course, we have the disseminator. This is where we share that information effectively within that given organization. And this is where they're making sure that your team knows exactly how important and why it even matters. And then, of course, you have in Lavender the spokesperson. That is the one that is representing your company to the outside world. Now, let's just say whether it's through media, investor updates, or even the community outreach. Now, the best managers, what they're doing, they translate all this complex information into clear action. And they know exactly that knowledge is only powerful when it's communicated effectively. Now, the next one that I'm going to go over is the decisional role. Okay. That's going to be the entrepreneur, the disturbance, the handler, the resource allocator, even the negotiator. Now, as I mentioned, management isn't just about meetings and memos. It's about making those decisions that are going to count. Now, as we already know, every single day, managers are now faced with choices that can make or break a business. As I mentioned, think about how Netflix, how they decided, let's say, to shift from these DVDs to the streaming, or how small businesses pivoted during the whole pandemic to online sales. That in itself, that wasn't a lucky guess. They were very decisive moves that were rooted in management and strategy. Now that I've covered how managers lead people, how they handle information, this is where we now focus on the decision-making side of management. This is right here. This is where the vision now turns into action. Every plan, project, strategy in itself, they eventually comes down to a moment where someone has to make that call. And this is where these four decisional roles now come in. Now, there are four main decisional roles. And as you can see here, we start off with the entrepreneur. Okay. That's just the innovator. They're the ones that are always looking for these opportunities, and they're looking for them to improve, grow, even adapt. And then, of course, you have the disturbance handler. Now, that is the problem solver, meaning this is where they jump in when something goes wrong. Let's say from supply chain breakdowns to employee conflicts, And then, of course, we have the resource allocator. Okay. This is the strategist. This is the one that's deciding where time, money, and effort need to go, and they go to get the best overall results. And then, of course, we have the negotiator. Now, the negotiator, this is the deal maker. Okay. They are the ones that are resolving these conflicts, managing contracts, and even creating partnerships that move the organization forward. Now, together, all of these roles are going to define how managers, keep the organization agile, even resilient, especially when things don't even go according to the plan. Okay, remember, the plan is just used as a guide. Okay, things are going to happen. You're going to pivot, whatever it may be. Remember that. Now, the beauty of management, it's a constant balancing act between, let's say, innovation, problem solving, even strategy. So now that I've covered these here, the roles that managers play, this is now where we're going to see, we're going to put these roles, into action. And we're going to go ahead and start with the planning. This is the first major function of management. Okay. Now, think about it. Every successful business story that you've ever heard, let's say from Nike to your favorite local coffee shop, how did it start? It started with a plan. But we already know that nothing happens by accident. Now, these great ideas only become a great results when someone takes the time to map it out. The what, the how, the who, the when. Okay. Now, planning is one of the most important management functions. And that is because it lays the foundation for everything else that's out there, the organizing, the leading, even the controlling. This is what separates, let's just say, a dream from a strategy. Okay. Now, planning just means setting these goals and figuring out the best path to reach them. It's answering those key questions. What do we want to achieve? How will we get there? Who's responsible? When will it happen? Okay. Now, when Nike, as an example, when they launch a great example, when they launch, when their launches are great, you know, before you ever see the shoe hit the shelf itself, there's months of research, marketing coordination, production planning, and even the release and the timing strategies. All of that is designed to maximize impact. Okay. That's what they're doing. Now, this video, I'm not going to play it. It's going to take too much time. I played this in class. I sent the lecture in a PDF. And in the lecture itself, in that PDF, you can click on it and it has it. I'll add the link once again. Okay. I highly recommend you watch it. This is a very good clip. I spent the time looking for the right clip for something like this. If you haven't seen the movie yet, I highly recommend you watch Air. Okay. Now, these are just some of the questions that are going to lead directly into something that you would call a strategic plan. And the strategic plan is what serves as your, let's just say, your company's long-term blueprint for success. And that is what takes us to this here, the planning function. Okay. Now, just imagine if you're trying to build a house without those given blueprints or without a set of blueprints, where do you think you're going to be? All over the place. Okay. Chaos. Okay. No sense of direction. Now, the same goes for a business. A strategic plan, all it is, it's your blueprint, it's your company's blueprint, and what it's doing, it's giving you, or it's giving everyone, better yet, it's giving everyone a more clear picture of in what direction you're headed in over, let's just say, the next 3 to 5 years. Now, let's just say in business management, strategic planning, what it's doing, it helps leaders in themselves define the direction and ensure that every department is aligned with that vision in itself. Now, without it, companies would drift, reacting instead of leading, I guess you could say. Now, a strong strategic plan is, let's just say, like a GPS for your organization. Now, it doesn't just tell you the destination. What it's doing, it helps you navigate how to get there efficiently. And it also includes these 6 core elements that you see here. The first one we have is vision, meaning what your company wants to become. It has your mission statement, why your company even exists, your objectives, specific measurable goals. Okay, you have to have that set in place. And you also have to have a plan of action. Number 4, how are you going to even get there? What are the steps in getting there? Okay. And then, of course, you have your approach, how you're going to be executing and coordinating these strategies. And then, of course, your tactics, meaning the smaller daily moves that makes it happen. Okay. That's what this is. Now, these examples, they show how planning in itself connects these big ideas with daily execution. So now, to make sure that your plan stays, grounded in reality, you could say, this is now where managers use a simple but a more powerful tool. And I went over this, and as I mentioned, make sure you pay attention, because you will be using them again. You will be seeing them. Okay. This right here, the SWOT analysis. Okay. This right here, this is a tool that every entrepreneur and manager needs to have in their toolbox or in their back pocket. Now, this SWOT analysis, it's a very simple and very, very, very powerful. What it does, it helps you see your business very, very clearly. Let's just say both inside and out. Now, think of it like a health check for your company strategy. Now, in business, we constantly evaluate where we even stand, what's working, what's not, what could even help us, and what could even hurt us. Now, this right here, this SWOT analysis, what it does, it organizes all of those thoughts into a more clear framework. And what it does, it guides the smart decision making. Okay. Now, a little bit of what it stands for, as I mentioned before, we have the strengths. Okay. SWOT stands for strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. Okay. Now, strengths, what you do well, brand loyalty, great team, innovative product. Your weaknesses, where could you possibly improve? Is there lack of funding, outdated tech, limited staff? Okay. What are your opportunities? Some of the external advantages that you can capitalize on, like let's just say the emerging markets, new technology, social trends, and what are some of the threats? What are some of the external risks? Are there new competitors? Are there regulations constantly changing? Market downturns? This right here, this framework that I'm going over, what it does, it helps you look at both, let's just say, the internal and external type factors to make those informed strategic moves. A lot of companies and organizations use these. Okay, keep that in mind. Okay, so what the SWOT analysis does, it helps every business stay proactive instead of reactive. Now, once that clarity has been established, the next step is understanding why the strategic planning gives companies their long-term advantage. Okay, now in the last, let's go ahead and wrap this up with this right here before I jump into the next slide. Now, this planning section, this is what truly matters. Now, it isn't just about paperwork, it's about performance. How companies that plan strategically, they don't survive. They tend to thrive. Why? Because everyone is aligned and focused and moving in the same direction. That's why you see this little map here with the planes and their points going from A to B. That's why I used it. So you have it, a clear picture, a visual. Okay. Now, strategic planning, what it does, it connects directly to leadership, teamwork, even organizational culture. But most importantly of all of this, it keeps everyone on the same page and it helps businesses adapt to change with a little more confidence. Okay. Excuse me. Now, the main benefits of strategic planning could include aligning everyone around a shared purpose. 2, setting a more proactive objective and a clear direction. 3, creating that long-term and short-term goals that are going to build that momentum. 4, assessing your current position, meaning identifying both those opportunities and threats. 5, building that durability through long-term thinking. And then 6, increasing the motivation and engagement among those employees. Okay. Now, planning in itself just simply creates that clarity, and that means clarity creates confidence. Now, planning tends to take a lot more discipline and foresight, but it's what tends to separate the reactive leaders from the strategic ones. Now that I've gone over the strategic planning and how it sets the direction, we're going to define what even anchors that direction, the organization's mission, vision, and even values. These right here, these are right here, the guiding principles behind every great business decision. Now, when you think of brands, let's say like Tesla, Chick-fil-A, or as I mentioned before, Patagonia, you ask yourself, what tends to come, what comes to mind first? It's not just the product, it's the purpose that they serve. These companies right here, they lead with a very, very clear mission, and a very bold vision. And they also have strong values that shape every action that they take. Now, in today's world, people don't just buy what you sell. They buy why you even do it. That's, what this slide connects. It connects back to our planning discussion. Now, before we set these goals or forecasting outcomes, organizations, they need to clearly define who they are, what they believe in, and where they are going. That clarity in itself, it becomes a foundation for every strategy that follows. There are 3 key elements. You have your mission statement, meaning it defines why an organization even exists, its purpose for customers, investors, even its stakeholders. The vision statement, okay, that in itself is going to describe what the company aspires to become. It's the long-term dream that guides this strategy. And then, of course, the value statement. This is what outlines the principles and beliefs that shape the company culture, even the decision making. Now, together, these three that you see here, they form the moral and strategic compass of any given organization. Let's just say, for example, Patagonia's mission, how it focuses on environmental responsibility, while Tesla's vision, it revolves around accelerating the world's transition to sustainable energy. Okay. Now, once the company's mission, vision, and values are clear, this is where now the managers can now confidently move into the forecasting. This is where they can predict what the future might hold and the planning how to achieve those goals in themselves, you know? So let's just say if you could see the future itself, business would be a lot easier. Now, while we can't even predict everything, a good manager, you know, good managers, sorry, they tend to do these forecasts. They forecast the future, and they do this by using data and informed judgment. Now, let's just say whether it's Apple projecting the iPhone demand or a small cafe that's estimating these holiday sales, forecasting in itself, what it does, it keeps businesses prepared and very competitive. Now, in management, forecasting is just a part of the planning function. And what it's doing, it helps these leaders make these educated guesses about what's coming, next. Let's just say the sales trends, the market shifts, the resource needs. Accurate forecasting in itself, what it does, it helps reduce risk and it turns that uncertainty into strategy. There are two main types of forecasting methods. Okay. The quantitative forecasting and the qualitative. And I'm going to be going over these two. Now, the quantitative, it's just based on numbers and data, such as, let's say, the historical sales, trends, patterns. The qualitative, on the other hand, that's just based on expert opinions and intuition. Let's just say like the consulting with specialists or surveying customer expectations. Now, when you put these two together, these tools, they tend to give businesses both logic and insight. Now, when you have a balance between hard data and human judgment, in themselves, forecasting, so it's about balance. So the first one we're going to be looking at is that quantitative forecasting, and we're going to see how managers use real data to make smarter decisions. Now, keep in mind, this is an actual forecasting. This is something that I've worked on before in the past. Now, managers in themselves, they have more information at their fingertips than what they ever did before. The challenge now, it isn't just collecting it. It's now interpreting this right here, this data from the spreadsheets to AI dashboards. Data in itself has become the modern manager's best friend. Quantitative forecasting, it's very essential. Keep that in mind. It's very essential. Why? Because it uses real measurable evidence, to make those decisions. Now, you're going to find, as an example, you're going to find this in industries, let's just say from energy to healthcare to retail to tech, anywhere that these trends matter. Quantitative forecasts, that is based on historical data, statistical models. Okay. Let's just say like a time series analysis that you see on the left-hand side. That's just looking at these patterns over a given time. Like, let's just say the monthly sales, correlation analysis. That right there in itself, that's just finding these relationships. Let's just say, for example, how the weather affects restaurant sales. And then, of course, you have the historical modeling, and that's using the past results to predict the future performance. Now, this kind of forecasting right here, it helps managers plan production, staffing, and even budgeting with more precision and minimizing the surprises and maximizing its efficiency. Now, when you let the data speak in itself, right, the numbers tend to reveal patterns that you can act on, but not everything can be measured. Sometimes you have to rely, let's just say, on human judgment. And as I mentioned, you're never going to take out the human element 100% out of anything where you're trying to calculate or whether you're letting AI. You're always going to have that human touch, no matter what, that intuition in the mix somewhere or other. Okay. So moving forward, This is now where qualitative, we're going to go over qualitative forecasting. So I'm going to go ahead and skip this slide because it still kind of mimics the other one. It's just a different example using a pie graph. So this right here, this slide right here shows qualitative. So not every decision can be made, let's say, by crunching the numbers. Sometimes you have to rely on experience, instinct, and even expert advice. So I mentioned, think of how Apple predicts how many people are going to be buying a brand new product before it even exists. This right here, this is what you would call qualitative forecasting at work. Now, qualitative forecasting, what it is, it's about informed judgment. In itself, it's very crucial, let's just say, for industries, emerging technologies, even markets with limited data. Now, while qualitative analysis, as an example, tends to look backward, qualitative forecasting, it looks forward. Now, qualitative forecasting is based, as I mentioned, it's based on intuition and expert insight. And it relies on, let's say, on the opinions from industry experts, consulting and focus groups, even market surveys and customer feedback. Now, this particular approach, what it's doing, it combines creativity with even strategy. And what it does, it helps managers fill in the gaps where data can't tell this story. Now, most successful companies, as an example, they tend to use both of these methods, the quantitative to validate it and qualitative to innovate. Now, forecasting in itself, all it's doing is blending both art and science. And once the managers use the forecasting to predict what's coming, the next step is now to set the clear goals and objectives. And that is to turn those predictions into measurable success. And this is where you have a goal and objective. Okay. So this is where things tend to start getting kicked off. We ask ourselves, what's the difference between a dream and a goal? The answer to this is a plan. A plan is every business from, let's say, a local startup to global companies, let's say like Amazon or Target, how they succeed. Why? Because they set that clear, measurable goal and they tend to work systematically towards it. Now, up to this point, we've talked about forecasting, predicting the future. Now, this is where we move into, let's just say, goal setting. And goal setting, what it is, it's success. We're going to look at this once the future tends to arrive. This step right here, this is a step where vision now becomes measurable progress. Okay. Now, a goal, I'm going to break it down between both of these. A goal, all it is a broad long-term aim. Let's say like increasing market share or improving sustainability. An objective, that is a short-term and specific, like let's say boosting quarterly sales by, let's say, 10% or cutting production time by like 5 days. Think of it like baseball. Your goal is to win the championship. Your objective, is the game-by-game strategies that are going to get you there. That is the difference between the two. Now, this structure, it turns intention into action. But we ask ourselves, how do we even measure these goals? How are they actually even achievable? That is where we're going to now jump into the SMART framework. This is where the SMART framework now comes in, right? It's what you would call it's your secret sauce. It is what turns your vision now into reality. Okay. Now, excuse me. Studies have shown that people who write down their goals are about 42% more likely to achieve them. But let's just say in business, it's not just about writing them down. It's about writing them right? That's right there. That is what SMART goals are all about. Now, in management, SMART goals, what it does, it gives the organizations a more consistent structure for planning and measuring success. Now, let's just say whether you're managing a team, project, launching a product, or let's say improving performance, these SMART goals, they turn these vague ideas into actionable plans. Now, this approach that you see here, it keeps organizations a lot more focused, even accountable. And this is why SMART goals, I guess you could say, they're used, let's say, from these corporate boardrooms to the classrooms, right? And so we ask ourselves, what does it even stand for? SMART. Okay. You have specific, meaning you have a clear and well defined, meaning you increase your online sales by what? 15% instead of just getting more customers. You have your measurable, meaning which includes your metrics to track progress, numbers, percentages, deadlines, and attainable, meaning your realistic given or resources and skills. And then, of course, relevant, meaning you're aligned with your mission, vision, even strategic goals. And then, of course, you're time bound, meaning you have a clear timeline or even a deadline. Okay. So just keep in mind that the SMART goals, they give you that direction. But managers, they also need a visual tool, and they need that to track progress across different projects, right? And this is where the Gantt chart comes in. This is the ultimate roadmap for planning and even execution. Okay. Now, this is something that I did bring up in class, this right here. And this is very interesting because I'm currently using one. Have you ever wondered how, or asked yourself how these massive projects, they like building a new iPhone, opening a hotel, or let's just say even running a college event, how all of these stay on track? What they're doing, they're using a very simple but powerful tool, this Gantt chart here. And this Gantt chart, what it is, it's almost like a GPS for your project timeline. Now, Gantt charts, what they're used for, they're used to visualize progress, deadlines, and accountability. And what it does, it helps you see who's responsible for what, when the tasks are, let's say, overlapping or are they being delayed, and even making those complex projects a lot more easier to coordinate, So what it does, it turns those abstract goals into a more concrete timeline. Let's just say whether you're launching a new product, planning a marketing campaign, or completing, let's say, a student project. Okay. These Gantt charts, what it does, it keeps everyone aligned. Okay. Now, what it does, it maps out everything from your tasks and milestones, meaning the steps that are needed for completion, your deadlines, when each step is due, and it has your progress tracking, meaning who's on schedule, who's behind. Okay. That's all that this is. Now, Gantt charts, what it does, it makes these managing goals a lot more visual and very, very structured. That's all it is. So next, this is where we're going to jump into the organized. Well, before I jump in, I want to show you my Gantt chart as an example. Let's see if it even opens up on the slide itself. So this is, I don't know if it'll show, but this is my Gantt chart. And I'm currently using this to work with clients. And you can see I have a list of clients. I have over 20 for a project that I'm currently working on. But this just gives you an idea, things I have set up. Everything I use, I have drop-down menus with all the business names. Every sheet has this. I implemented this into this. Client names, as an example, the activity, whether it was the initial email was sent, business plan roughs, financials, you name it, it's in here. Everything populates itself, and it just keeps me on a timeline to make sure I am still making progress with my clients, as an example. I do a lot of things color-coded. Everything is color-coded within the not started, in progress, block, submitted, and complete. Notes attached. Instead of writing my notes in here, I have an external little caret on the right-hand corner in red, and it tells me this. Now I share this with the lending officers so that they're made aware of, and this just gives me where we're at in the timeline, as an example. As you can see, like this client here, they haven't, I met with them on Friday. So I went ahead and completed that and I started they haven't scheduled a new appointment, but this just lets me know as an example. Um, and where am I at percentage wise? Where was I at, with the client beforehand? So, anyways, that's a little bit about a Gantt chart. Now, there's different types of Gantt charts, how you want to lay it out, depending on what you're working on. But the way I use mine, everything is formulated, as you can see, and everything, is drop down menus, very organized. And as I mentioned, I think I'm the only one within my organization that uses it or that knows how to use one. Anyway, because I've used them in the past, I think they're very, very helpful. But that's just to give you an idea on a Gantt chart, you know. So moving forward, every winning organization, let's just say from Apple to the Dallas Cowboys, they thrive not because of luck, but because of structure. Now, even the best ideas, they fail without the right people or the roles or having those systems in place to execute them. That's where this organizing function comes in. Now, in business management, just so organizing, it's all about turning those plans into reality, you know. And this is where these managers now arrange these resources, people, money, tools, and they do this to make sure that everything runs smoothly and efficiently. Now, without organization, strategy stays stuck on paper, you know, keep that in mind. Now, every level that you see in this particular triangle that you're seeing here is very, very essential. This right here, the management pyramid, it helps you visualize this particular structure. You start with a very, very top, and the top sets the direction, which are your top managers. Okay. This right here, these are your visionaries, like your CEO, CFOs, your vice presidents. They're the ones setting the long-term strategy. And then you have your middle managers, your B. Okay. Now they are the ones that are coordinating. What they're doing, they're translating, let's say, the big picture, the goals into action plans. Think of like the department heads or directors as an example. And then, of course, you have C, your first line managers. Those are the ones who tend to execute. These are let's say, your team leaders, your supervisors, your boots on the ground managers, and they are the ones that ensure tasks actually get done. Okay. So keep in mind that structure, what it does, it creates, that stability, but leadership, what it even does more, it creates that momentum. Okay. So now that we move from organizing people to inspiring them, this is where now the leading function comes in. Okay. So think about all the leaders who've made headlines recently. Let's just say whether it's a CEO that's navigating change or maybe a coach that's motivating a team. Leadership, it isn't about a title. It's about that influence. Now, great leaders, they know how to bring out the best in people and even steer them towards a more common goal. Now, in management, leading in itself, that in itself is the human side of the business process. I guess you could say, it's how managers inspire, guide and even motivate people to reach these organizational goals. Now, these leadership, an example, what it does, it's bridging the gap between planning and performance. And this leading function, what it's doing, it's focusing on communication, motivation, even influence. It's not just about giving orders. It's building that trust and helping people see how their work even matters. Now, having a very strong leader just means that they understand the organization's mission and how they rally others behind it. That right there, that is what creates culture, loyalty, and even innovation. Okay, remember that. Leadership in itself, it looks different for everyone. But the key influence and impact, That is what we're going to take a look at. These three major different leadership styles that we're going to look at, and they're going to define how managers tend to lead their teams. Okay. Now, let's just say if you've ever worked, let's say, in different jobs that you've probably noticed, not all the bosses are the same. Some, they're, are team oriented. Others, what they may just let you run with it. Leadership styles, that is what shapes how teams perform and how motivated employees tend to feel. Now, having a good understanding of leadership styles, it's going to help you identify your management approach and adapt it to pretty much fit your given situation. There's no one size fits all, as you can see, you know, but the leadership style means, just means that the best managers know when to switch those gears. Okay. Now, what you see here, these are the three main styles. You have the autocratic, leadership, meaning this is where the manager makes the decisions alone and directs the subordinates. It's efficient, but it can limit, let's just say, creativity. And then you have the democratic leadership, the one right in the middle, B. That's the one where the manager invites input and collaboration, and it builds that morale and engagement, but it may take longer to reach consensus, And then you have the liaise fair leadership. That is where the manager acts more as a coach, meaning this is where it gives the employees that freedom and responsibility. Now, great, let's say for self-motivated teams, but it's very risky if it is structured weak. Now, let's just say in today's workplace environment, many managers tend to use different blends, firm when necessary or collaborative when possible, hands off when that trust is established. It just depends. Leadership, it's about adaptability. They have to know how to adapt to any given situation. So now that we understand how managers lead people, this is where we're going to take a look at how they develop them through coaching, mentoring, building, that strong organizational culture, So have you ever had someone say, believe in you before you even believed in yourself? That right here, my friends, this is the power of coaching and mentoring. Now, let's just say whether it's a great boss, a teacher, even a coach, the best leaders, they just don't manage people. What they're doing, they're developing them. Now, in management, success isn't just about hitting those numbers or meeting these deadlines. It's about building people. Now, the most effective organizations tend to invest in helping employees grow. Why? Because when people grow, the business grows with them. Coaching and mentoring, these leadership tools, they're the ones that this is what unlocks the potential. Coaching, keep in mind, it focuses on performance, meaning it helps the employees overcome these obstacles and improve the skills. Mentoring, what it's doing, it focuses on development, guiding the employees' long-term career and personal growth. Now, together, these two right here, they create a culture where people now feel supported, motivated, even valued. Remember that, okay? Now, the energy of great managers, this is what brings, that depends what they bring to their team. Let me see. I'll go over it. I'm going to break them down just a little deeper so you have a good understanding of each one of them, okay? I was going to go ahead and skip these because I kind of covered them very briefly, but I'm going to go over them a little more in depth so you have a better understanding what is the difference between coaching and mentoring. Okay. So picture this. A manager, they don't just tell you what's wrong. What they're doing, what they do or what they should do, they should sit with you and ask questions. And they should ask these questions to help you figure out how to fix it. That's right here. This is what you would call coaching, Now, there were some companies that shifted from command and control leadership to coach and collaborate type leadership. So the workplace should not be, put it this way, And I know I've brought this up about micromanaging. The workplace should not be about micromanagement. It should be more about helping people get unstuck. So it in itself, it's a process that boosts this confidence and it builds these skills and improves problem solving. It's about empowering your employees while keeping them very, very engaged. Now, great managers, they don't give out, or they don't tend to give out all the answers. They ask the right questions that help the employees find the answers themselves. And this is what you would call coaching. Okay, keep that in mind. Coaching in itself, all it is, it's the act of helping employees reach their highest potential. And they do that by meeting with them regularly to identify these challenges or discuss what's holding them back and offering the advice, encouragement, and actionable feedback. Okay. Coaching, what it is, it's about lifting people up. It's not calling them out. Okay. Now, on the other slide, this is where we jump into what mentoring is. This right here, mentoring, this is where the leaders now help the employees grow this long term and how they prepare them for these future leadership roles. Okay. Now, here's the cool thing about mentoring. It's leadership that outlives you. Now, let's just say when you mentor someone, you're not just helping them right then and there. What you're doing, you're shaping the leaders of tomorrow. Let's just say Steve Jobs as an example. He mentored Joni Ive, or let's say how Oprah mentors young media leaders. That right there, that's what you would call legacy leadership. Now, in management, mentoring, it just builds a pipeline of talent. And what it does, it helps less experienced employees learn from those who have already walked the path, giving them the tools, the wisdom, the confidence to lead. It's not about the hierarchy. It's about connection, trust, and investment in others' success. Mentoring, all that is, it's a relationship where experienced managers guide and support newer employees by, let's say, sharing knowledge about navigating that workplace, acting as role models for professional behavior, or helping these mentees understand company culture, politics, even these growth opportunities. Okay. That right there, that is what mentoring does. It creates those ripple effects that are going to shape the entire organization. So now that we've explored how these leaders reinforce that culture through organizational values, we're going to build these environments where people feel driven, and we've also respected and even connected. Okay. So here's something to think about, what you see here. You ask yourself, why do some workplaces feel exciting and empowering while others feel stressful or draining? I'll tell you why. The answer is culture. Okay. Culture. Organizational culture, that is the heartbeat of a company. And what it does, it shapes how people think, act, and they feel at work. Now, in management, culture, it isn't about free snacks or casual Fridays. It's the shared values, attitudes, and behaviors that define how things get done. A positive culture, what it does, it keeps the employees engaged, customers satisfied, and they perform even stronger. Okay. Organizational culture, it's built around these key elements that you see here. Okay. You start off with values. That is the core beliefs that guides these decisions. You have leadership. They're the ones that set the tone through behavior and communication. And then, of course, you have people, meaning that's the relationships and trust among the employees. Motivation, that is what drives performance and commitment. Technology and tools, how the organization supports collaboration and innovation. Now, when all of these align here, you get a culture where people want to contribute, not because they have to, but because they want to. That's what that is. And this is very, very important. Culture is what connects people to purpose, better yet. But once that culture is built, this is where these managers need to make sure that these goals are met and the performance stays on track. This is where the controlling function comes into play. Okay. So let's just say, imagine coaching a team that you wouldn't just draw up plays and walk right away. This is where you would track progress, adjust the game plan, correct the mistakes in real time. This is exactly what managers do through, let's say, the controlling function. Now, in management, controlling doesn't mean being bossy. It's about measuring performance, comparing it to the goals, making improvements where these results tend to fall short. And it also keeps the organizations accountable and aligned with their given strategy. Now, the controlling process, it has four key steps. Okay. The first one is it sets the performance standards, meaning it's based on those strategic goals and expectations. The second one, it measures the actual performance, meaning that it uses a metric, say, like sales, quality, customer satisfaction. And the third one, it compares the results to these standards, meaning it identifies these gaps between what's expected and what's even achieved. And then you have, it takes that corrective action, meaning if these results aren't meeting these standards, it adjusts the plans, the processes, the training, So all it is, it's a continuous loop after corrections. Managers reevaluate, and what they do, they repeat to ensure this ongoing improvement, right? So controlling, all it does, it ensures that businesses don't drift off course. Okay. And this is where we tend to explore the tools that managers use to measure and optimize this performance, starting with benchmarking. Okay. Now, here's a reality check. If you're not measuring performance, someone else is. Now, the most successful companies, they're constantly comparing themselves to the best in the industries. And they do this to see how they're stacking up with it. That is where this comes in, the benchmarking. You know, they're learning from the best to become the best. That's all it is. Now, establishing some performance standards, it helps ensure that the teams aren't just working hard, they're working effectively. Now, benchmarking, what it does, it takes that step further by asking, how do we measure up against the competition? It in itself, it's a tool for excellence, not just evaluation. It's not just about copying, it's about learning from others' business practices and tailoring them to your company's goals. Now benchmarking, that just means collecting and comparing performance data, cost, productivity, even quality. And they do this to see how your company performs relative to industry leaders. What it does, it innovates to looking outside your organization to see what others are doing right then and there. It also helps managers identify these areas to improve and set achievable type targets, And remember, benchmarking or benchmarks, it is what benchmarking is, the how, okay? What it does, it helps businesses see where they currently stand. But even, with these high standards, projects can also face these trade-offs between time, cost, even quality. And that is where this next slide will come in. The quality triangle. This is where it starts getting interesting. Okay. So you've probably heard of the saying, you can't have it all. Now, let's just say in business projects, that's very, very most likely true, especially when balancing time, cost, and quality. The key is learning how to manage those particular trade-offs very effectively. Managers, they're constantly juggling these deadlines, budgets, expectations. This quality triangle that you see here, this shows how these three forces are interconnected, how they change one, how it impacts the others. Here's how it works. You have time on the left-hand side, and that just means how long it takes to complete a project. You have cost on the right-hand side. That's the amount of resources, money, people, and tools that are even available. And then, of course, you have quality. Okay. That in itself is at the bottom. That's the standard or fit to purpose the final result where it needs to be met. Now, when the project scope increases, which is known as scope creep, this is where managers need to choose whether to, let's say, add time, like extend those deadlines, add costs to like bring in more resources, or cut quality, meaning reduce those features to stay on track. This is where now great managers know how to balance these without sacrificing what matters most: customer satisfaction and deliverable success. Okay. This is exactly where these trade-offs are part of every manager's reality. Okay. Now, this is where we're going to look at a world-renowned system. And this is what is designed to tackle these type of challenges head on. Six Sigma. So I want you to pay attention to this. This right here, this is the gold standard for process improvement and performance excellence. Okay. Now, companies say like General Electric, Motorola, Amazon, what they did, they just didn't improve. What they did, they transformed their performance using a system called Six Sigma. It's not just a given buzzword. This in itself, I get so excited when I talk about this because I've implemented this. This is a proven data-driven strategy to achieve near perfect results. Okay. Now, in management, this right here, this is, about eliminating these errors, reducing waste, maximizing efficiency. This is one of the most effective ways to improve quality, save money, and keeping the customers happy. Okay. Now, Six Sigma in itself, it follows a 5-step process, which is known as DMAIC, which is what you see here. Define, measure, analyze, improve, and control. Okay. I want you all to pay close attention to this because this is very, very powerful. Now, the first one, define. Okay. This 5-step process, as I mentioned, I'm going to start with the first one, define. This is where we identify the problem or process that needs improvement. Measure. This is now where we gather the data to understand the current performance. Analyze. We find the root causes of errors, inefficiencies. Improve. We implement these changes to fix the issues. Control. We monitor the results to make sure the improvement lasts. Okay. And the goal here is very, very simple: to increase profits, reduce defects by continuously refining every given step of the process. This is why industries, let's say from manufacturing to healthcare, they rely on the Six Sigma principles to stay very competitive. Okay. Now, Six Sigma, as I mentioned, it isn't just a buzzword. Okay. Make sure you pay close attention to this. Okay. So let's go ahead and let's see what it's all about. Okay. So keep this in mind. We're going to apply the first 3 steps and then we're going to move to another 2. And this is on a product. Okay. So here's where it gets real. This is not theory. This is not corporate jargon right here. This is an actual product improvement that changed an industry. Okay. Now, what you're looking at here are 2 composite frac plugs in the oil and gas on the completion side. This is something I used to do. Very small but powerful tools that can either make or break a company's bottom line. Guess what? Every decision improved in this design is followed by the Six Sigma process. Okay. So remember our first 3 steps: define, measure, analyze. This right here, this is where engineers and managers, they identify the problem. They're gathering the data. They determine what's really happening inside the process before jumping to these solutions, right? So what did they do here? I'm going to walk through this right here. We're going to walk through this example together so that you have a clear understanding. We define, okay? We define the issue, which was the spun wound filament cone designed on the upper portion of the plug, which was slowing production and occasionally causing the ball to lodge during flowback, a costly and time-consuming failure in the field, which is what you see in that square in the red and the yellow, okay? In the red was the first design, and the yellow was the second one afterwards. Then what we did, we measured. We collected the data on production time, defect rates, material costs. The numbers showed high variability, too much time spent on the winding process, and inconsistent cone tolerances, right? What do we do next? We analyze. After evaluating the data, we identified that the manufacturing method itself, not the materials, was the main cause of inefficiency. What was the solution of this? We shifted from a spun wound process to a cold molded, meaning injection molded design. This single change right here, what it did, it increased production output, standardized quality, and it created a more reliable field ready product. Okay. Now, that right here, this is the power of data driven thinking. Now, what we're going to do, we're going to jump a little further into the two final stages, the improve and control. This is now where you tweak, where these small adjustments where they led to massive gains in cost savings and efficiency. Okay. Now, this is where the magic happens. Okay. After all the measuring and analyzing, we move into improve and control. This right here, this is where the Six Sigma turns these insights into action and action into efficiency. Now, in this particular phase here, this is where the managers and engineers, what they did, they collaborated to refine the process. And they did it not just to fix a problem, but to design sustainability into the solution. Now, the goal here was to pretty much ensure that, that the improvements are repeatable, measurable, even profitable. Okay, keep that in mind. Now, in the version 1 that you see there, in that first one there, you take a look at these 3 composite frac plugs, 1, 2, and 3. Pay close attention to them. You'll see that 1 is a lot longer, right? And then 2 is a little shorter, and 3, they're both the same, just the cone difference. Okay, but this is a great visual here. Now, this right here, in this phase right here, version 1, the original one, it's a lot longer design, spun wounded cone, material, more material, higher cost, lower production, right? Because you have to drill these up when they're in the well. Okay, but this is just to give you a visual. The second one, the transition model, we got shorter, partial redesign to reduce the amount of material waste. And the 3, what do? We optimize that design. The full transition, we went to the cold molded, injection molded type cone. A lot shorter plug. The length was still the same as that second one. Significantly higher output per production cycle. So what I'm getting at, by implementing the improved, what you're doing, you're cutting down on the material cost and production time while you're maintaining the strength and reliability, Now, through control, this is where you're able to standardize every given step of the molding process, meaning you're locking in that quality consistency and the cost efficiency. Now, the overall results to all of this is the lower production costs, faster manufacturing cycles, and a product that can now perform far better in the field. This right here, this is what you would call Six Sigma in motion. Measurable, repeatable, and a profitable improvement, right? So this right here, this is where management and engineering now intersect. This is, now you've seen the Six Sigma's DMAIC process applied to a real world manufacturing. Okay. Next, this is where we're going to shift, let's say, from the production efficiency to the performance measurement using the balanced scorecard. And you're using this to evaluate the success across finance, operations, customers, and even growth. Okay. Now, let's just say if you were running a business, how would you know if you're truly winning? Most people look only at, let's say, profit. But in today's world, success in itself, that's multidimensional. This is why the balanced scorecard has become one of the most powerful tools in management. What it does, it helps you see the whole game, not just a scoreboard. Now, in management, measuring performance, what it is, it's about more than tracking sales or costs. It's about understanding how every part of the business contributes to long-term success. Now, the balanced scorecard, what it does, it breaks this down into 4 key perspectives that helps these managers maintain balance between, let's say, short-term results and sustainable growth. Now, the balanced scorecard, what it does, it evaluates performance from 4 different angles. Think of these, think of them as 4 legs that keep an organization stable. Learning and growth, meaning are we developing our people skills and technology to stay competitive? Business processes, how efficient and effective are our internal operations? And customers, are we meeting and exceeding customer expectations? Finance, are we profitable, sustainable? Are we using the resources wisely? Now, by tracking each of these, managers can now pinpoint where the business is thriving, where it's falling short before problems, they turn into crisis. Now, it's not about measurement, it's not just about, a measurement tool. What it is, it's a management system that drives alignment between daily activities and strategic goals. Remember that. Now, we're going to look at the 4 types of managerial skills. Now, these essential abilities are the ones that every manager needs to master to make all of these systems run smoothly. Technical, human, conceptual, even the decision-making skills. Okay? Now, here's something to think about. Have you ever had a boss who, let's say, was incredibly smart technically, but they couldn't communicate with their team? Or let's just say someone with great, great with people, but very terrible at planning. This is now where the management success just depends on balance. Now, mastering these 4 essential skills is that power of, effective type leadership. Now, in business management, it isn't just about authority or titles. It's about having that skill. These 4 core management skills that you see here, interpersonal, technical, conceptual, even decision-making, this is right here. This is what transforms a manager from the average to exceptional. And each one of these, they play a vital role depending on where you sit within the organization. Okay. So the first one you have is let's that interpersonal, right? And that is just the ability to understand people and communicate effectively. And these are the skills that help managers motivate these teams, resolve these conflicts, build the trust. Think of a great communicators like, let's say, Howard Schultz from Starbucks, who built a culture around people. Or the technical skills. These are the hands-on expertise needed to perform, let's say, these specific tasks, at the first line management level. This right here is very, very critical. Let's just say, for example, a production supervisor, how they need to understand machinery and workflow to lead effectively. And then you have the conceptual skills. And that right there, that is the big picture thinking that's going to connect all of the moving parts of a business. These are the top managers, how they rely heavily, on this, and they align strategy and operations, right? This is right here what allows these leaders like Satya Nadella at Microsoft to see beyond the day-to-day tasks and guide the long-term transformation. And then, of course, you have the decision-making skills. That right here, this is the art of identifying the problems, weighing in on all these options and taking action. At every level of management, this right here, it's going to depend on, all this, from, let's say, deciding on the marketing strategy to managing crisis, or even allocating these resources. That's what all of this is, right? Now, each skill right here, it supports everything else. And as you continue moving up within the management pyramid, you're going to rely less, on these technical skills and more on the conceptual skills and the decision-making ones, right? So this is where we're going to pretty much get ready to close out the chapter on the future management. This is where technology of AI and cognitive automation, how all of this is now reshaping how the managers make these decisions in real time. Okay. So this is where we're going to go ahead and fast forward all of this to the modern business world. This is where now we're in that industry 4.0. This right here, this is where data, AI, and automation is completely reshaping how managers make these decisions. So I want you to think about it. Instead of manually sorting invoices or let's say tracking performance data, this is now where companies are now using these bots and AI systems that do that, boom, in seconds with higher accuracy than humans ever could. In management itself, cognitive automation now just represents the next level of innovation. And what it does, it's combining the artificial intelligence of AI, machine learning, and robotic process automation, which is known as RPA, and is doing that to help these managers solve these complex problems a lot faster, and helping them make these data-driven decisions. So what this technology does, doesn't, sorry. So this technology in itself, it doesn't replace the managers. What it's doing, it's empowering them. And what it's doing, it frees these leaders from repetitive tasks. And it also allows them to focus on what tends to really matter: the strategy, the creativity, the innovation. Okay. So I'm just going to give you a quick breakdown of these 6 that you see here of how cognitive automation works in real world business process, like invoice management as an example. You have the vendors send these invoices, let's say, to a company's bot managed email inbox. And this bot categorizes each email by type and initiates the correct workflow. What it's doing next, it's goes for these unstructured documents, like let's say PDFs or handwritten forms. A cognitive bot, what it does, it extracts the relevant information and it passes it to an RPA bot. Now that RPA bot, what it does, it validates the data and it posts the invoice automatically, meaning no manual data entry is even needed. Now, the system then logs all of the activity, and what it does, it generates an end report for the accounting or management team. What is the result? Massive improvement in response time, meaning reduce manual errors, lower operational costs. This right here, this is how AI in itself, how it transforms management from reactive to proactive. And what it does, it enables that smarter, faster, and more informed decision making. Okay. Now, cognitive automation, it's changed the way managers lead, plan, make these decisions. And as we wrap chapter 7 up, I want you to remember this. The future of management belongs to those who can combine human judgment with technological intelligence. Okay. And last, this is where we get ready to conclude this chapter with a short reflection on how these roles and these skills, how they all come together to shape the modern manager, from strategy, structure to innovation, even digital leadership. So we've explored the vital role of management, and as the driving force behind every successful organization, we learned that management operates through these 4 functions: planning, organizing, leading, and even controlling. We even supported the 3 essential roles that define how managers interact, communicate, and make these decisions. Through effective planning, managers now set these goals, and what they did, they designed these strategies through organizing, and they structured teams and allocate these resources through leading, and they even inspire and motivate people, through controlling, but they even measure progress, ensuring the alignment with these objectives. Now, beyond these functions, in this particular chapter, it was emphasized that great managers rely on a blend of interpersonal, technical, conceptual, and decision-making skills. And they did that to lead effectively, in today's fast-paced environment. Lastly, we went ahead and looked ahead to the future of management, where cognitive automation and AI technologies are transforming. And this is how managers analyze information, improve efficiency, and how they make these data-driven decisions. Together, these insights in themselves, they show that modern management is both an art and even a science. Now, this is one that combines strategy, leadership, and innovation to help organizations thrive in the digital era. Now, as we wrap this chapter up, I want you to keep in mind that management isn't just about titles or authority. It's about impact. Keep that in mind. Now, the best managers, they know how to plan with purpose, organize with clarity, and with a lot of empathy, and control with precision. Technology in itself, it continues to evolve. Great leaders will be those who can blend human judgment with digital intelligence, turning this data into strategy and people into progress. Now, just remember, whether you're managing a small team, a startup, or a day-to-day company, I want you to keep these skills very close. Why? Because leadership in the digital enterprise starts with how you think, decide, and how you even inspire others. I want you to keep that in mind to do their best. So, with that being said, that is the end of chapter 7.